Welcome to this first session in our discussion of Good Friday, one of the most holy and solemn days of the entire Christian year. Perhaps we might just begin with a brief note about the name of this day. In many other languages, it's simply called Holy Friday. And it seems that this English title of Good Friday emerges from the same idea, when the word good in earlier centuries of English meant holy as well. But I think in our current context, just thinking about what it means to call this day good as we know it can be an important place to begin our reflection on this day that is in many ways not good at all as we look at our Lord's passion, his suffering, and his death for us. Looking at our scriptural foundations, we see that the Passion narrative, of course, is found in all four Gospels. This day has, for many centuries in the liturgical tradition, focused on the Passion in John's Gospel. We'll have much more to say about that as we proceed. If we look at liturgical history, there's quite a rich variety of ways in which the day has been celebrated. I want to point out just two particular moments in history. The first takes us back to Egeria, a pilgrim who traveled to Jerusalem at the end of the 300s and left us a diary. We briefly mentioned her in our discussion of Palm Sunday. In her diary, she describes the worship at Jerusalem on Good Friday. Of course, this is an extraordinary way of celebrating because it's happening at the very place believed to be the site of the crucifixion and the resurrection, at the complex that some of you might know today as the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And there in the morning, the bishop brought out the wood of the cross, believed to be the true wood on which Jesus died. And then the faithful were invited to come to kiss the cross, to make their devotions to the instrument on which our Lord was killed. This became such a popular practice that it spread throughout much of the Christian world. Of course, in time, others would venerate a cross, a simple cross, not believed to be the true wood of the cross. And then Egeria tells us that from noon until 3 in the afternoon, there was a gathering of all the faithful. There were readings and prayers and hymns. And I think we're meant to see that as very intentionally mirroring the time on which Jesus hung on the cross, those 3 hours on that afternoon. She tells us there's such emotion, such lamentation among the people. And then at 3 o'clock from John's Gospel is read the passage where Jesus gave up his spirit and died. And then later at the tomb, at that complex we know as the Holy Sepulchre, the Gospel of Jesus's burial, also from John, was read as well. If we jump ahead many centuries to look at medieval England, just on the cusp of the Reformation, in which the independent Church of England would emerge, we find very similar practices, along with some that had emerged in the centuries in between. Once again, the Passion from John's Gospel, chapters 18 and 19 are central. They're the gospel reading for the day. And after that comes a series of prayers called the Solemn Orations, in which prayer is offered for a whole variety of things. After that comes the veneration of the cross, much as discussed by Egeria. And then comes reception of communion from the reserved sacrament that had been consecrated the evening prior at Maundy Thursday. Many of these will come back in our discussion of the Liturgy of the Prayer Book in our next session. But if we look to the prayer book tradition from the 16th century as it emerged after the Reformation, when Archbishop Cranmer put together the first prayer book, we see something much more simple. The devotional activities, the veneration of the cross, these things have been eliminated, and the focus is solely on the Passion from John. Again, John chapter 18 and 19. And that would be the practice for well over 400 years in much of the Anglican world. The changes that were introduced in our current prayer book of 1979 brought back some venerable practices. We'll discuss those in our next session.